Respected Principal Madam, Professor Dr. Sutapa Mukherjee, Emeritus Professor and former Dean Academics Professor Dr. B.N. Chatterjee Sir, Registrar Sir Dr. Shubhashish Pradhan, all HODs, faculty and staff members of BPPIMT family and other institutes. Participants from various states of India, research scholars, students, and other working professionals, a very good afternoon to all of you. I, Ahona Chakraborty, welcome you all on behalf of Department of Computer Applications of BP Poddar Institute of Management and Technology in the fourth day of the workshop on machine learning in data science. Today we have hands-on session. Now I introduce our today's speaker, Ms. Atoshi Nath. She was a part of our Master of Computer Applications BPPIMT family. She has completed her MCA in the year 2017 and presently working on Mobiwala Information Solutions Private Limited as a software engineer. Now, without taking any more time, I'd like to call Ms. Atoshi Nath to take over the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ahona, for introducing me. And let me just share my screen. Is my screen visible? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank my college for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this session and to be able to talk in this session. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Atoshi Nath. I'm a software engineer in Mobilewala Information Solutions Private Limited. So this company is basically, it's a data company. They get data from different various sources. They store the raw data, they process the data, and there is data science team who operate the data, who process the data to some extent, and then after that, this data, whether it's raw format or processed format, is being sold to different organizations. Although the different types of compliances that we need to maintain while selling the data, all these things are always maintained. Work-wise, I have worked on Java, Python, and currently in my current company, I'm working on Scala. I have worked on different cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, and big data technologies like Spark, Kafka, and Hadoop. So this is my overall technical experience. Now let's move on to the agenda of this session. Today we'll be discussing about the data analysis and its importance. Then we'll be talking about what is real-time and batch analysis. After that, I'll be talking about Apache Spark, which is a new technology which is being hugely used by different companies. And after that, I'll be discussing I'll going through a brief introduction about what is MapReduce. Then I'll discuss about different components of Spark, like what is the position of Spark in data processing pipeline, why Spark is better than Hadoop. I think we all have heard the term Hadoop for big data processing. Then I'll be talking about a very important component of Spark, which is RDD, Resilient Distributed Data Set, the architecture and the ecosystem of Spark. Let's begin. So first of all, what is data analysis and what is its importance? So basically, when we talk about data analysis, why do an organization would perform data analysis? They want to get to know about the future. They want to predict the future. They want to retain their customers. They want to, they want to manage, or they want to get whether there's any risk in the future or not. All these things are being done by processing the data, by analyzing the data. But when we talk about analyzing the data, can we just analyze the data, in its raw format? We cannot, because the data we get from several different sources, right? The sources might be social networking side, it might be any real-time data processing pipeline or something. There are many sources that we get the data from, right? Now, the raw data that we get is, most of the times you cannot really infer anything from that data. So what we need to do is we need to process the data to some extent so that that data can be, that data is useful by the organization. Okay. For that, there are different types of processing that we can perform. Like we can perform data quality, we can perform data profiling. Like for data quality, we can we can check the null values, whether there is any null value available in some column where null value should not be there, or maybe some column if the type of data is same or not. Or there are many things that can be that can be done on the data to make it in a form so that it can be used, it is useful. Basically we can get some value from that data. And after that, after we have processed the data to some extent, after that we can perform different analysis operations on that so that we can get some value of the data. Now when we talk about the value of the data, it's the value is that the organization, whichever it's working, it's using that, can get some use of it. Like if we talk about healthcare organizations, how would the data that they are analyzing would get the value of it? If they can predict something, if they can predict the treatment of an of a ill people or something like this, kind of future prediction they can do by that data. So this is about the importance of data analysis. Now when we talk about the importance of data analysis, the data is always huge in size, right? We cannot really analyze the data of very small amount of data. That wouldn't make any sense. Well, now let's move on to real time and batch analysis. I think the name suggests quite about the batch analysis or real time analysis. So basically batch analysis is when you store the data, you gather the data for quite some time. It might be one 1 hour of data, it might be 1 month of data or 3 months of data. So you're kind of gathering the data, and then after that particular time period, may it be 1 hour or 1 month, after that particular time period you are processing that data on a batch process, right? You are analyzing or you're processing or whatever you're doing, you're doing that after a particular time period. And now when we talk about real time data, basically this is a very crucial thing, because we need to process the data in real time as and when it comes. The data comes from different sources, and as and when it comes we need to process the data. Well, so this is a very crucial part, processing the data in real time, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Now when I talked about real time data processing, of course, both for real time and for batch processing, the data size will be huge, right? Because data analysis cannot be performed on small amount of data. It can be performed, but it won't give any result, any final result. It won't be of any help, right? So, okay, but before I start with Apache Spark, do you guys have any question? I mean, till now?
Otoshi, as of now
Yeah.
in the chat box, there are no questions.
Okay.
So you may proceed.
Okay. Okay, so when I talked about real time and batch processing, as I was saying, that the data will be really huge in size, right? So forget about batch processing for now, but let's talk about real time processing. So when we talk about real time data processing and the data size is huge, there must be some technology, some some technique through which we can process that data efficiently, so that it won't it won't harm the system, right? And when we talk about that, when we talk about real-time data processing, Apache Spark is a very useful technology that is being hugely used not only in India or outside India, but also in Kolkata. I mean, the companies, those are working with big data and they are analyzing their data. Most of the companies, they are working with Apache Spark. Okay, now when we talk about Apache Spark, Apache, you can understand, so it's open source, it's free to use, you can just download and install and you are good to go. Now it's basically, it gives us a distributed system, so that this is about the students. If you know about Hadoop, you can know that Hadoop gives us a distributed system, right? There's a master node, there are different name nodes, So this is about distributed system. Now Spark also gives us a distributed system where you can perform your operations on a parallel manner. Okay, you can perform your operations parallel manner so that the time of the execution gets reduced. And also it gives us a this is a very important very important component of Spark, which is resilient distributed data set, RDD in short. In short, I will talk about RDD a bit later, but this is another thing which which helps Spark to perform faster. The computation that is done is in memory. So unlike Hadoop, where there's a constant reading and writing data from disk to memory, in case of Spark the data resides in the memory. Hence this kind of input output operation, it is it is not done here. Hence the time of the computation also is reduced because of this in memory computation, and hence Spark is also called lightning fast. Okay, so it's very fast in terms of computations. And also the MapReduce operations that we done, if we compare with Hadoop and Spark, the MapReduce computation in Spark is really faster, instead of Hadoop. So in the next slide, I'll just briefly give an overview of what is MapReduce operation with terms of a simple example, which is word counts example. Okay. So here, if you look at the left hand side, you can see this is a words.txt. This is a text file. Okay. And now inside this text file, there are several letters. You can see A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. I would tell you to consider A, B, C, all these letters as words, because this is what I am going to say is a word count example. So let's just say that this is a file which contains this, this many number of words. So what is our motto is we want to compute which word has occurred for how many number of times, right? Now, if we discuss it in terms of MapReduce operation, the mapper will do is it will tokenize the words. Okay. So what is it doing? First of all, see, A has occurred, kind of putting 1 beside A. B has occurred next, so B comma 1. Again, C has occurred, so C comma 1. Then after that, A has again occurred, hence it is writing like A comma 1, and so on so forth for B, for C. Whichever word has occurred for how many times, it will do it like this. This is the operation of the mapper. Now when we go to the next step, this is like sorting all the the steps that, or the list that you have got from mapper. This is sorting all those elements, right? You can see A comma 1, A comma 1, all the A's, all the words, those are coming just one after the other. In the same way B has been sorted, in the same way C will also be sorted, so on so forth. After that, it's being shuffled. So you can see A comma 1 comma 1. So how many number of times A has occurred? 1 will be appended, right? Then after that, in the reduce step, the aggregation is being done. So you can see A comma 20, which means that A has been occurred for 20 times. B comma 20, which means that B has occurred for 20 times. C comma 20 means the same. So this is quite a brief overview of MapReduce operation. Okay, do you have any question?
Yeah, if go to the previous slide.
Yeah.
Here ABC, so A comma 1. Now suppose the text file contains ABC again A, then it will comes A2, A comma 2.
No, sir. It will be A comma 1, B comma 1, C comma 1. Again, when it gets that A again has occurred, it will be again A comma 1 only.
Okay.
So again, suppose it gets B, it will be B comma 1, comma C comma. Whichever word, doesn't matter if it's same or not. It will just be appended in this way. It will be a list like this. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
I have a question, Otoshi.
Okay.
Otoshi,
Yeah.
I have a question also.
Yes, sir.
Go to the okay. Yes, A B C again. That means in a complete cycle. Actually, suppose A B C D, then it is complete. It completes A B C and D. Again coming A, then we can write A2. Are you
Sorry, sir. I didn't get your question. Can you
Actually,
please once again tell me?
actually A B C. Actually, if there is another word A B C D, and
Okay,
after
yeah,
that
yeah.
A B C, then we can write A1 B1 C1 D1 again A2.
No, sir. It will be A1 only. Means we are not see, we are not calculating in this. If we are talking about the mapper function, we are not calculating anything here. We are only
Okay.
appending one as and when we are getting a word. Okay. Whether it has occurred before or not, we don't care about that. We are only appending
Okay.
one
Okay.
record.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
A
Okay.
has
Okay.
been occurred for 2 times, it will only be at first A comma 1. Then
Hmm.
after that, whenever it gets A, it will be A comma 1 again. So the counting is being done afterwards in the
Okay. Okay.
reduce.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got
That
it. Thank you.
that means every separator,
Yeah.
the separator comma will be there. So
Yeah.
each and every letter or word, whatever it is, it
Yeah.
will be treated as one.
One.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And
Each
at last
word
it
will be
is
treated as one.
after and the reduced portion, that is total sum of the
Yes,
how
yes.
data it has occurs.
Yes, right.
Okay. 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 Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm moving. Is there any other question? Okay, so I'm moving to the next slide. So here I will be describing where does Spark actually stands in terms of data processing pipeline, right? So you can see here event producer 1, event producer 2, event producer 3. These are all the sources. Okay, this means the sources can be social media or anything, any source that we were discussing before as well. So these are all the sources. Now, for the time being, please don't consider Kafka. I'll talk about it afterwards. But just think that from the sources, whichever here, event producer 1, producer 2, and producer 3, data is coming, and data is directly coming through Spark. I mean, data is directly coming to Spark. Spark is kind of taking the data. Okay, so once it takes the data, now inside Spark, you can process the data, you can analyze it, and like everything that I was mentioning before for quality check, data, metadata detection, everything you can do in Spark. Okay. And then you can also analyze your data inside Spark. After you're doing that, what you can do is you can put the data into a storage system. Any storage system that is supported by Spark, like here you can see AWS S3, there's HDFS, which is Hadoop distributed file system, HBase, MongoDB. In any storage system, whichever Spark supports, you can put your data there. Now, once you store the data inside somewhere, after that, your application can read the data from the storage system and you can visualize your data into anywhere you want. So this is basically the position of Spark in terms of data processing pipeline. Now I'll very briefly talk about what is Kafka is doing here. So basically, sometimes what happens, the speed of the data is sometimes it's really high. And so if you consider that you don't want real-time processing, or if you consider that you don't want to get the data directly to Spark, what will happen is you can put the data for some time into Kafka. Okay, so Kafka is here it's working like a messaging protocol between two applications. So this application will the applications in the left hand side, those will write their messages or whatever the data they are getting inside Kafka. Now Spark will read the data from Kafka, okay, and then it will process. So it's like Kafka is kind of working as a middleman to store the data for some time, and then Spark will read the data from there. Is it clear?
So it behaves like a buffer, no?
Yes, you can say that. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, moving on to the next slide. Okay. So here might come a question that why should we use Spark over Hadoop? Because we all have heard about Hadoop. Hadoop is really has hugely been used for their big data management. But then why should we use Spark over Hadoop? So the first point says that the speed of Spark is really high. I mean, I'm not talking about 2x faster. I'm not talking about 3x faster. I'm talking about 100 times faster. I mean, Spark is 100 times faster than Hadoop in terms of MapReduce programs. Next is you can process both batch data and real-time data using Spark, which is not possible using Hadoop. In Hadoop, you cannot process real-time data. You can only process batch data. And another is ease of use. So basically, writing Spark program is easier than writing programs, programs in Hadoop. So if you consider a basic word count example that I just showed you, if you write that MapReduce program in Hadoop, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to write it in Hadoop. But if you talk about writing it in Spark, it's quite easier than in Hadoop. So yeah.
Atoshi,
Yes, ma'am.
Atoshi, yes. One question from my side.
Yes.
That is, you would be actually explaining one of the terms you had told, that resilient distributed data set.
Yeah.
So what
Yes.
exactly is it? Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll be talking about it in the next slide. Most probably, I have that resilient
Okay.
distributed data set. Yeah.
Okay. So just for a reminder.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'll talk about it. Yeah. So in this slide, I'll be talking about the architecture of Spark. So basically, when I talk about Spark, it's a program. Like in in Java, we have a main function, which is the starting point of our program. Here in Spark, the driver program is the main program. But before I go there, let me tell you that this is basically the picture that you can see. This is a Spark cluster. Okay. In the Spark cluster, we have 3 different nodes. The node in the left hand side, which is written as driver program, is basically is a master node. And the other nodes that you can see, worker node, 2 worker nodes, these are also the slave nodes. You can see like where the process will run. For the students, let me clarify one thing, that nodes are nothing but the machines. Okay. And when these all machines are connected together, they form the number of machines. When they're connected together, they form a cluster. Fine. So so this is the driver program. Sorry. So this is the driver program. The main function of your Spark program will reside here in the driver program. And the Spark context that you can see, this is basically the starting point of your program. So whenever you want to run a Spark program, the first thing that you need to create is Spark context. Spark context will basically, communicating with the cluster manager, it will decide that which part of the program will run on which worker node. Okay, so you can see here, executor is nothing but a place or a position in the memory where all the components that just before some time I said RDD. What is RDD? I'll talk about it later. But all these things, whichever things are generated by your program, will reside in the executor. And tasks are nothing but the code or the part of the code that will be running in the that will be running in the worker nodes. So this is about the architecture of Spark in a brief. Let me go to the next slide, where I will be discussing about the resilient distributed data sets. So this is a very important component of Spark, which I even talked about before. The data set, basically you can you can take the data. So let me go to some slides before. Suppose this slide. Okay, here we can see that different sources, the data from different sources are coming into Spark. Now when the data is coming into Spark, it should reside somewhere, right? RDDs are that particular data sets where the the data that it's getting will reside. In RDD, we can see it's distributed. Basically, when we talk about it's distributed, it basically will be distributed in several nodes in the cluster. So suppose I have a RDD, I have an RDD. Suppose the name of the RDD is RDD1 and the partition factor is 2, right? So then the RDD will be divided into 2 parts. The first part will reside into worker node 1 and the second part will reside into worker node 2. So this is it. This is about the distributed structure of the RDDs. Now, how do we get an RDD or how do we create an RDD? Well, so you can see that we can create an RDD by a collection. It might be a Python code, it might be a Java code or Scala or R code or whatever it is. So we can create an RDD from an existing collection, which if you look at here, you can see that data is equal to, we have taken a list, which is a collection. So from there, if you look at the next line, this data is equal to sc.parallelize then data. So basically SC is nothing but Spark context. What I told earlier, that Spark context is the starting point of a Spark program. Then comes parallelize. So this particular function will it will convert data into an RDD, and it will store it inside this data. So this data is, you can like this data is an RDD. So when we talk about RDD, I will just give a small example of RDD, just to be very clear about it. Suppose we have different data types, right? Data types in Java. So when we when we write the variables has different data types, right? Just like that, consider RDD as a data type in in case of Spark. This is a Python program, so we haven't written anything before this data, because Python program does not really need to get that need to write the variable data type there. But if you are working with different like Java, then you need to you need to provide RDD or something here, just in the left hand side of this data. So this is about it. This is about getting an RDD from an existing collection. In the next example, if you look at here, data.txt, which is a which is a text file. Hello, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question that will it be this data minus sc.parallelized data, or will it be equal this data equal to sc.parallelized data?
No, it is equal to. It's written here. It's is equal to sc.parallelized data. So basically, it's like
due to
yeah.
the resolution, it is showing as minus.
Okay, yeah. So yes, so data.txt is a text file. So what we can do is, using text file, this particular function that you can see, sc.text file, we can convert this particular file into an RDD. We can store it into dist file, this variable that you can see. Now this is about how to get an RDD, but you can perform several operations on an RDD as well. Which are the operations? The operations are transformation and action operation. Now, which is transformation and action operation, I will be discussing in the next slide. Okay, so is there any question up till now?
Otoshi, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You have taken the text data, that means 1, 2, 3, 4 with the integer data. If there is any image file or any other type of file, binary file, then what do we have to do using RDD? Money is a special type of data or any type of data?
See, sir, basically, if you have image file, you or like any different types of file, there are, I mean, different kinds of, this is only RDD, but there are different kinds of things available, components available, like data frame, there are data sets. So this if you are like, this is only integer type of data, or this is like you're taking the data from a collection only. But if you are working with several types or several formats of files, then in that case you need to take your data into different components. I mean, for that, you need to take different components to take your data. That's it.
In that case, RDD will not work.
It depends. I mean, the type of data, it depends on the type of data. If it's like, yeah. So that's. So I'll talk about what are the different components available in some time. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay. So now I'll be talking about transformation and action operation, which we can perform on an RDD. Now, if you look at this picture very, very carefully, you can see that in the in the right hand side there is sc.text file, some file.txt, and text file. This is basically an RDD, right? So this is like we have read a text file and we have put it inside an RDD, right? Now, if you look at the left hand side, there is transformation. So this is again for the students. I think you guys are quite aware of the transformation operations. What happens in the transformation? Basically, the data that you have will be, it will be processed, or it will be, after processing, it will get some, you can process the data to some extent so that it becomes something that your process really wants or you really want. So this is like changing the data to some extent. Okay. to be very precise. Now, the same thing will happen with RDDs as well. When we are performing operation on an RDD, what will happen is whichever operation we are performing, depending on that, the RDD will be changed and basically another RDD will be created. Okay, this is the transformation operation. Now, if you look at the bottom side, you can see lines spark is equal to text file dot filter. So basically, filter is the operation, is the transformation operation which we are going to perform on this RDD. The RDD name is text file. We are going to perform filter operation on this particular RDD, and what we are going to do is we will take only the lines that contain spark in it. Okay. So that is what the filter operation is going to do here. But after the filter operation has been done, we will store the value, or the value that this particular operation is returning, which is an RDD. We'll store the value inside lines with spark, this RDD. Okay. So basically our program has in this step, there are two RDDs. One is text file, another is lines with spark. Fine. So this is about transformation operation. Now there's another type of operation that we can perform on RDD, which is action operation. So action operation is basically, you can say, in case of transformation operation, we are getting another RDD from an existing RDD. But in case of action operation, what will happen is we won't get another RDD from it. What will happen is the data will be gathered and it will come inside the master node that I talked about. The master node is this one, the driver program. The data will be collected and it will come inside the master node. The result will come inside the master node. Okay. This is about action operation. Now, what are the action operations available there? There is count, there is first, there is collect, also another operation, another master, another action operation. Now let's just talk about count. Okay, how it performs. If we think about it, fine. So we have one RDD, which is suppose RDD1, which I just talked about before. RDD1 has read a file. The file contained 100 lines, suppose. So what will happen is that RDD1 will be divided into two parts. Okay, the first part will reside in worker node 1, and the second part will reside in worker node 2. Now, when we are performing the count operation, what will happen is your program will look through all the worker nodes and it will count the total data. It will count the total data, and the result, the total data means the total number of lines, which is 100. So suppose if we talk about the worker node 1, there are in RDD1 there are 50 number of lines. In the next one there are 50 number of lines. When we are performing count operation, it will count both, like the RDD is residing in both the nodes, and it will count the total number of lines, and the result, whichever it's getting, will be there in the driver program. We will send to the driver program. So this is about the action operation. Do you have any question? Okay, so this is about the action operation. Yeah, is there any question?
No, Tushari, I don't have a question. You are excellently doing. Very grateful. I am satisfied. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, so these are the transformation and action operations. Now, one thing I would like to say that Spark is a very lazy, very lazy in terms of processing their data. Okay, so Spark does not process the data until and unless it gets that there is an action operation has been performed. Only when it says that action operation has been performed, only then it will process the data. Means if you look at this particular example, you can see their text file. This is one RDD. Lines with Spark. This is another RDD. And after that, we have performed the action, which is lines with spark.count, right? Now, when the program sees that count has been, count function has been operated on this particular RDD, only then all the values like reading the data and, storing it into an RDD, then processing that RDD again, all these things will be done. Until and unless it sees that some action operation has been performed, the RDD will not be calculated. And for getting that, which operation to perform after which operation, like there are several multiple operations like map. Yeah, is there any question?
Yes, Atushi,
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Inaditi ma'am here. Yeah,
Yeah.
can you emphasize on transformation techniques? What are the different types? Like you said about the action one, discount first, etc. are there. So what about transformation technique that is
Okay.
being
So what
used?
are
Yeah.
okay? So what are the
Yes,
different transformation techniques available? Are you talking about
yes.
this? Okay, so the
Huh.
first one you can see here is filter. Another one that I can talk about is map. So map is like filter is, I think the name quite suggests it. Suppose you want to get the lines that does not the lines that do not contain any null value, or the rows that do not contain a null value, you can use filter. Then another is map or flat map. Flat map, both are available. So in case of that, when we're talking about map or flat map, it will go through all the lines of the data, all the lines of the RDD, and it will perform some transformation operation. Anything you can perform on it, depends on your requirement. So these are two kinds of transformation operations that are available, and once the transformation operation is done, it will be stored inside an RDD. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Okay, fine. It would suffice. What about the missing values if present earlier? So, would it be considered in the transformation, or would it be only considered prior to transformation? Just,
uh,
just, a,
it
just a
will be
query from my side. Nothing
Yes,
else.
ma'am. It will be considered while transformation. So transformation, if, I mean, whatever you're doing with your data will go in. I mean, will go inside transformation operation only. Then after that action you're performing, whatever you want to print the data or whatever, then action is coming. But before that, the processing and all will come inside transformation operation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, I'm moving to the next slide then. So, so how does Spark understand that which program, or sorry, which process to perform after which process? It maintains basically a DAG. I told you earlier that it is a very lazy kind of, it does a very lazy kind of evaluation. So to understand that which process to perform after which process, it maintains a DAG, which is a directed acyclic graph. So you can see in the picture, at first parallelize operation has been performed, which is like getting the data inside an RDD. After that, on that RDD, filter has been performed. After that, map has been performed on that particular resultant RDD. After that, reduce by key, and so on so forth, right? So this is just a graph which Spark maintains as to know which program to or which process to perform after which process. So this is basically just an example of the graphs that Spark maintains. Well, so after that, we'll be talking about the ecosystem of Spark. When we talk about the ecosystem of Spark, the main component of Spark ecosystem is Spark Core. Spark Core is basically, it's the major engine. It's it is helping to memory management. It's helping to schedule the jobs and perform the jobs and all the things that I told about, like RDDs and all. They all reside inside Spark Core. I mean, they fall inside Spark Core. Now, on the top of Spark Core, there are several different components that are available, like Spark SQL. When we talk about Spark SQL, I'll be showing Spark SQL today, basically in the demo session. So Spark SQL gives us to run several queries, which are like SQL like queries. Okay, so we can run SQL like queries on Spark, and in the backend Spark will compute these queries into its native query. But we can write, like anyone who knows, who gets an understanding, who has an understanding of SQL like queries, can do a programming in Spark SQL. The next thing is, and a very important thing, is Spark Stream. So Spark Stream is what I was talking about, like processing real time data. So it will what you can do, or what it does, is basically it gets the data from several different sources. The size of the data is really huge, so that it it breaks it into several chunks, and it processes the data. Then it stores the data into several into the storage system. After that, the next two components that you can see are mostly used by data scientists. So the first one is MLlib, which is basically used for machine learning algorithms. So it provides us some default machine learning tools which you can use in your program for your processing. And the next thing is GraphX, which is like it provides you a graph-like structure for for your processing. So that's about the Spark ecosystem. And another thing I want to mention is when we're talking about Spark SQL, because we will give a demo session on Spark SQL. When we talk about Spark SQL, we won't be using RDDs here. There's different types of components, which is Spark data frame. I think data frame is quite a common term. If you know about pandas, if you have worked with pandas, I think that's quite a common term, data frame. So there you can your data resides in a columnar format. It has a schema. It's like a table basically. So that is what we are going to use today. Okay, so it's time for a demo session. But before that, do you have any question?
Yes, Atashi, I have a question. I found that this Spark is excellent, and Spark is 10 times faster than Python. So both are...
No, Spark is basically 10 times faster than Hadoop MapReduce.
Okay, but in Wikipedia they probably says differently. It says that to get the Spark, you can get either Spark language to get the Spark Apache Spark. You can get it the features by the Spark language or Python. Spark language is 10 times faster. That is as per Wikipedia. And this, I think, this Spark streaming real time only is the Python can access this, or I have to use Spark language. That's right.
Yeah. See. One thing I would like to clear that Spark is not a language. Spark is written. The mother language of Spark is Scala. Okay. But you can code in Spark using R, using Python, Java, or Scala. These 4 languages are provided to code in Spark. Okay, so you can take any language. Like in my company, I work with Scala. I mean, for coding, I use Scala. But when I in the demo session, I'll be showing you using Python. So basically, all the languages that you can use for coding in Spark, and all the
But Scala is faster, I think, in Python, probably, because it is the host language there.
Yes,
I think Scala is a more complex application. You can write it Scala. Python,
and also there are different lambda because Scala is the mother language. So these functions always these all work faster in if you are using Scala. So that's.
Yeah, but this Spark engine is Apache Spark available in Google or Amazon or in all Azure, in all cloud platforms. I think they are available in all cloud platforms.
Yeah, so basically I have shared a document where I have sent I've written a link from where you can download Spark. So you can download Spark from Apache.
I use it in our machine learning or deep learning. If I have to use, then should I have to buy this?
No, you don't need to. You don't need to buy anything. All the libraries are available free.
No, that is not running time. Probably you may have to buy. Okay, that issue I can get. One is personal talk. We can make it because the running time I found it is very costly. Though they're giving it at free, whenever you're actually using it, then they give a lot of there are a lot of obstacles.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So let's move on to the demo. Yeah. So, yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Is this lambda function in Scala is like equivalent to the inline function of C++?
C++ no, I don't think so. No, it's not that.
The inline function, something function that it works on the flow, means on the fly it evaluates the value and gives us the output. Is it similar to the Python lambda?
Yeah, Python lambda, it's quite same. I mean, both of Python lambda, like lambda function in both in Python or Scala or Java, it's quite same.
Okay, and I have one more question. How this RDB is different from RDBMS? Is it able to deal with unstructured or semi-structured data? Unstructured it is not possible.
Yeah.
But
so basically,
is it only for semi-structured data, structured data, or semi-structured data?
Yeah. So first of all, you said that if RDD is same as RDBMS. To answer this question, first of all, RDD RDD does not have a structure of the data. Okay, if you want to have a structure of the data, then you need to move on to Spark data frame, because data frame has a structure of the data, right? So RDDs do not have a structure of the data. For that, how to process structured data, for that you need to use data frame, and how you can use a data frame, that I will be showing in a few moments. Does that answer your question?
But the thing I wanted to know, can Spark deal with semi-structured data?
Yes, of course. So suppose if you are talking about semi-structured data, do you know about JSON format?
Yeah, I do know.
Yes, so we can read JSON data in Spark. Okay, JSON
Okay.
format is a semi-structured format, so we can read JSON data in Spark, and we can proceed with our our operations. So yeah, it performs on semi-structured data. Also, structured data, semi-structured data, all are, it operates on all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, so let's move on to the demo session. Uh, okay. But before I move on to the demo session, here, first of all, as I said earlier, that I'll be talking about how to use Spark SQL. The reason why I chose Spark SQL is because I think all of us are quite aware about writing SQL programs, SQL queries. So hence, it will be quite easier for everyone to get it. But before I start the program, I'll like to show that what is the data set and what are the different headers of it. Let's first open this file, which is customer. Acha, can you see my screen properly? Is it visible properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this CSV file has header. Okay, the headers are like gender, title, first name, last name, location, age of the user, cell phone number of the user. All the details about a user are residing there, and this is where we can consider this as the exam, or as we can consider these users as the users of a particular company, right? Just think about that. Now we have another file, which is retail.csv, where we have only 3 columns. These are purchase date, user ID, and product ID. So basically, purchase date is, this file contains basically the data of a particular time length, a particular time frame. It is near about 1 month of data it has, and the data that it contains is which user has bought which product in a particular day, right? So this is the details that this particular file contains. And another file I have, but this file we will not be needing here, which is product.csv. In this file, nothing but I have just the information about a product: ID, name, price, selling price, and category. But this file we won't be needing in today's session. Let's just, so first of all, let me tell you what this program will be doing, and then I'll be going through the code. But before that, is there anyone who will be doing it with me? Then maybe I'll wait for a few moments to set up and all.
Okay, that is the PyCharm.
Yeah, PyCharm. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So just a moment. Okay, you carry on.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, so first of all, you can see I have imported a few things, a few libraries that we need here, like PySpark is the library that we are going to use here. And from PySpark, we have used SQL. We have basically got the Spark session. And I told you earlier, if you remember, that Spark context is the, it's the starting point of a Spark program. Here I have created a Spark session basically. So in the recent version of Spark session contain, it creates a Spark context internally. We don't need to create it explicitly. So hence I have created a Spark session. I have given a name of my application here. So this is about creating the Spark session. Now what I'll do is I'll get the customer data. The customer data means I'll get the data from customer.csv file. For that, spark.read, I'm going to read a CSV file, hence this, and inside this I'm going to give the file name, which is dataset slash customer.csv. And then because this particular file has header, hence we are going to mention that in our program, header is equal to true. If the file has header, then we are going to mention as true, otherwise false. And this this file will be read inside a data frame. Hence we are going to get a data frame or create a data frame, which may be named as customer df. Fine. Now just print this. Print this means just print the schema of it, so that you can understand that what are the different columns available inside this particular file and what is the schema of it. Print schema is a function that it provides, which will help you to get the schema of your data set. Okay, so if you look at it carefully, you can see that there are different columns available, like gender, title, first name, last name, street number, and all this. Okay. Now what we will do is we don't need all these columns. We will select only a few columns that we need, and the other columns we are not going to process further. So hence what we are going to do is, just let me write it down, then I'll explain. Okay, so if you look at this part of the code, what I have done is customer df, which was the data frame where I had got the data before. I am performing a select expression function on it, and inside the select expression, I am putting all the columns that I want to read from here. This is quite similar as the SQL function, SQL queries. Right, there also we select the different fields. Here also the same thing we are going to do, but we are going to do using the functions, which is select expression. And select fields is basically a list that you can see here. This is a list. Also another thing that you can see is in the select fields, what I have done is id value as id. So basically id value is a column in the customer.csv file. Okay, but we don't want this column to be id value. We want to change the name of it, just like we do in the queries. We want to change the name of it and we want to rename it as id. Hence this is it. Now if we print this particular schema, the schema of the final customers, you can see that id value has been renamed as id. So you can see we have ID, gender, name, first name, last name, and all the columns that we had selected. So this is about selecting different columns from a data frame. Okay, now we will be reading the retail data. It's quite the same as reading the customer data, hence just changing the name of the file, which is retail.csv, and I'll be printing the schema as well so that it's quite clear. Retail TF. Okay. So these are the schema. These are the columns that that are available, which is purchase date, user ID, and product ID. Well, now let's move on to the next part, where we need to merge the detailed data with customer data. So basically, when we are merging, what we want to get is, we want to get all the customers. We want to get all the attributes of the customer who have bought products in that particular time frame. So basically, we want all the customers in the retail data and all the other attributes of those customers, because retail data has only user ID. We don't have we don't get to know about the other attributes of that customer. Hence we want to know, and so for that we want to join both of this both of the data frames. Hence, just again let me write it down. Okay, so the first data frame is retail DF. I'm going to join it with customer DF, this one, customer final DF that you can see. Okay, so I'm going to join it with customer final DF. On which column am I going to join it? So I'm going to join it on, if we talk about customer final DF, we're going to join it by on the user ID. Okay, so the customer final DF has an column as ID, and retail DF has a column as user ID. As we can see from here, if you look at the console, there's a column as user ID. So we are going, sorry, dot user ID. We are going to join it by user ID. This is just the same as join operation as we do. In join operation, we put on the same thing we are going to put here as well. And also in the join operations, we put which kind of join is going to happen. The same thing we are going to put here as well. Where I'm going to put as left. So it is going to be a left join, so that we get all the details of all the attributes of the customers who have bought some products in that particular time frame. And after that, again, we don't need all the columns from the data frame, from the resultant data frame. Hence, we are going to select particular columns. Okay, so which are the columns that we are going to select are this. I have already got it. These are the okay. So these are the columns that I'm going to get from it. Do you have any question? Is there, like, up till now, is it clear?
Aditi, Aditi ma'am here. One question is there in the chat box that one of our students have asked, can we do the same thing in the Jupyter platform of Python?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can do it. We can do it in Jupyter.
You can do it on Colab also.
Yes, I mean, it's just wherever you can run a Python program, we can run it. We only need to import PySpark.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just name it something, because the result will come into a data frame. So retail customer DF. Let's now print let's now show some values of it, of retail customer DF, of the joint data. Let's just show some values of it. How do we do that? there's a function called show. We want to get two rows of from it. So hence we are going to write it like this. So if you look at the resultant data frame, you can see that two rows has been showed. Two rows are being showed, and it shows the only the columns that I have chosen from the resultant data, which is ID, gender, name, title, all these things. So by now we know how to perform join operations, how to select some columns from from our data frame, all these things. Now we will move on to getting to know about some other things. Okay. Now the next part of the program says gets distinct users who bought product in the time frame, in the particular time frame. So for that, because retail customer DF, it contains, or maybe retail data also we can take retail DF. So this contains separate, this contains all the customers that have bought data, that have bought product in that particular time frame. Let's just choose the IDs from it. Let's use retail customer DF. Let's just choose the IDs from it. ID will refer to the customer ID. And then we are going to perform distinct operation on it. Distinct is another function that is provided by Spark, through which you can get distinct elements from just the same as SQL. Okay, let's just put it in another time data frame, which is frequent user DF. So frequent user DF does have all the user list, the distinct user list who have bought data, or who have bought, sorry, I'm talking about data, who have bought product in that particular time frame. Okay. So now what we need to do is, now we need to get the infrequent customers, or the customers who have not bought any product in that time frame. So it's like, the customers who are present in customer data, but those are not present in the retail data. So that's what we are going to do. But here I will be showing you how we can actually write SQL queries on the Spark data frame. Okay. For that, we need to first convert a Spark data frame into a view. Let's do that. So the data frames that we need are customer data, we need the customer data, and we need the retail data. There's a function called create or replace 10 view. So this will create a view, or will replace, if there's any present, then it will replace it. Let's just name it as customer table, any name that you can provide. And the other table that we are going to use is this frequent user. Let's name it as retail table. And now we'll be performing the SQL operation on it. How? Spark provides us a function called SQL. Inside this function, you can provide the particular query that you want to run. This is the same as the SQL query. So we are going to select star from. Now, because this is a view name, so we can just use this name, customer table, where ID is not in, because we are going to get the IDs that are in customer table but not in the retail table. select ID from the retail table. So basically this will this is how you can run an SQL query on a Spark data frame. This is how you can run it. And after that, this will also go inside a data frame. Let's just name it as infrequent users. Okay, so we can also show some values from it. I don't know if it would actually give something because maybe all the users are there. Let's just see if there are any user available. So I would like to, by the time it runs, I would like to ask the students, I mean, is it really, what do you think? Is it really tough to understand? Like when I am, working with Spark SQL, what do you think? Is it really tough to understand, or you can at least get the gist of it? I want to hear from any student if you're okay with that. Okay, so I guess it's really tough. Anyways, let's just move on to the next part. We have got the infrequent users, and now we're going to segment users based on gender and age. So basically, we are going to get the suppose just as an example, we want to get all the female users who are of more than 40 years of age. Okay, so for that, what we can do is we can let's just customer final df dot select ID. There is a gender, and we can select the age of the customer. These are all available columns inside customer final df inside that data frame. So we have selected the columns, and now we are going to perform where clause. Yeah.
There is a question in the Google YouTube actually. If you kindly maximize your screen.
Oh, sorry. Isn't it? Can you see it now properly?
So it is visible on the Google Meet screen, but from YouTube it is not visible clearly. So can it be possible to enlarge the font size?
Just a second. I'll try to do that. Control Alt plus, or what does it? No, I can't basically zoom in.
Can you, Atarshi, can you go to the view tab and see whether it's there or not?
Structure, appearance,
Appearance. Enter full screen or presentation mode.
I don't think it will help. Is it clear now?
In the presentation mode, view in presentation.
Ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
At the bottom, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's visible now.
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Okay. Okay, so I have chosen the from the final DF of customer, I have chosen ID, gender, and age, and now I'm going to perform the where operation on it. Okay, so I'm going to get the customers who are female, the gender of them is female, and the age of them is greater than 40 years. Okay. And the resultant data frame I'm going to store in one data frame, which is cast email greater than 40 TF. Maybe I can get the distinct select distinct age, so that I can show that whether we have got a proper data or not. Select age. From there I'm going to select distinct age, and I can show that. Okay, let me just run it now. Is it visible properly now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see here we have got all the distinct ages which are greater than 40. So that was my motto basically. Also, I had got all the female customers whose age are greater than 40. So this is it. This is how we can perform select operations, where operations on a data frame. Well, now we can get the percentage of users bought products in the time frame. So for that, what we need is we need the distinct users who have bought data or who have bought product in that particular time frame. We need to count. We need to perform an action on it, which is count, and we need to get the total number of users who are there, and need to get the percentage of it. It's just percent. Okay, so let's get the distinct frequent user. Now we will perform count operation on it. And we will get distinct customers, the total count of customers, which is this one, customer final DF. Let's just print it. Okay. Let's run it once so that we can understand which kind of data that we have got. So I've got the percentage of the customers who have bought product in that particular time frame, which is 87.0%. Okay, Now we are going to count the products by product ID. So basically what I want to do is I want to just perform a group by operation on it, and I want to count which product has occurred for how many times, or which product has been bought for how many times. That's what I want to do here. Now for that we need the retail data. I'm just getting the retail data. From retail data we are going to select one particular column, which is product ID. So retail data has a column named product ID. We are going to select it, and then we are going to perform group by on it, and then we are going to perform count on it. And after that, I just to show, I want to put it in a chart. For that we need to convert it into a pandas data frame. Just see if okay. And after we have converted it into a pandas data frame, now we can plot it just like this. There are several different functions available. X-axis we can give product ID, which is again one column of product ID, and as y-axis we can give the count of it. Okay. Let's see if it's running or not. Yeah, so basically we have got a chart which in the x-axis it contains the product ID, and in the right hand side, in the y-axis, it has got count, and yeah, hence this is the chart that is being shown. Another thing that we can count is we can count the sale by dates, that it's quite the same as the before one. Okay. And retail VA. From here we can get, instead of product ID, we can get purchase date. We're just going to change the x-axis, and yeah, here we go. I'll comment this part so that only one chart will be printed. Yeah, so this is it, because there are several dates available, so it's like kind of not we cannot see it properly. But yeah, this is about printing these things on charts. So this is what I have to show you. I had to show you in this session, and I hope this will help you in the future. And this is what I want to say to the aspiring students, whoever is preparing for their jobs, I guess. So I would like to ask Inaduti ma'am, if there are students there who are going to be going to take part in the interviews and all.
Yes, definitely, because more
Okay.
Nowadays what actually the industry is asking for is Python. So in that case, it would be rather fruitful. And could we share your email ID and your number so that they
Yeah,
would be able
sure.
to contact you for
Yes, ma'am,
further
sure.
doubt clearance and everything?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. You can. So for
Okay.
those students who are aspiring to sit for the interviews and all, I would request you that, see, it was not possible for me to go in a
Exactly.
go in depth
Yeah.
in this short time.
Short
So I would,
session. Yeah.
yeah, I would request you to, if you want, you can go through the documentation of Spark that is available. So you can go through it.
Fine.
You can see everything. You can see different. Also, you can code in different languages. There are Java, Python, and Scala. All code for all the languages are available in Spark documentation. So just visit, and if you want, you can see it, because every company, whoever is working with big data, is working with Spark. So hence, if you have at least the basic knowledge, it will be helpful for you to crack the interview. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
And even we are sharing the recordings of yours and all the sessions. So in that case, everybody would be able to again go through what you all have done in the hands-on session.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yes.
so it would be like fruitful enough for the students.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to ask about, what about the missing values or the null values if present in the .csv file? How it is going to be handled in
So
this Skype Python?
yeah,
Spark
so if
Python.
you have a missing value, suppose you have a null value in any of the columns, what you can do is you can just filter out the value. You can put a kind of, you can run a filter operation on it, and you can see whether there is any null value or not. You can filter out the value. If there is any null value,
On a particular column, I can filter it.
Yes, you can filter it on a particular column. You can just select a particular column. Suppose I'm talking about there's a null value in gender. Okay, so you can just select gender, and then you can perform filter operation and select the gender which is not null. That's what you can do.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Any other questions from the session?
Sorry.
Atoshi, it's a very good lecture, really very good lecture like this.
Thank you.
I have a very naive question. Probably it is limited by the primary memory of your RAM, of your machine, because you see it is totally in memory. So currently, a laptop only 32 GB is available. So, but it at the cloud space, how it is to be done, and what is the price range it is to be available? Because the laptop or desktop 32 GB more than is difficult. Yes, thank you.
No, it's not as. No, see, if you. Yes, so if you want to like here, I really don't have a good amount of data here. Like the data size will be maybe some GBs. But if you're working with, if you're working in a cluster, the cluster is set up in the cloud. It might be in, like, if we're talking about AWS, EMR is it gives you a like a cluster where you can run your big data programs. Okay, it gives you a cluster. It creates a Spark cluster. So there you can run your program. Fine. Now the cluster, it depends. The size also, it depends. The types also depends. So how much the differences, if the type of the cluster is different, based on that the price will also be changed. So how much memory you are taking, based on that the price range will also be changed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm done basically. If there is any question, I'll answer that.
Yes. Any more questions from the session? So I hope we would be concluding the session. Ahana, shall we just conclude the
ma'am.
session?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Atushi ma'am, thank you for your wonderful session.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to call Inaditi ma'am to present a small token of appreciation. Ma'am, please.
Yes, Tushi, on behalf of Department of Computer Applications, BP Poddar Institute of Management and Technology, we would like to express our gratitude to you for this enriching session, and we would always be some technical snag is again there. Yes. So thank you, Atushi, for being there for us and for the department and
Thank you,
institute.
ma'am.
Okay. The token of appreciation will be mailed to you. And it was such a wonderful session,
Okay.
especially the hands-on. This is what we want from
Thank you,
the
ma'am.
alumni and what we could get best out of it. Thanks. And
Yes.
we
Thank
would
you.
be concluding the session for today. Hope we'll be meeting tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Thank you, Atushi. And
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you, Atushi.
Just
Excellent talk.
Thank you, sir.
thank you, Shomnath sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, Principal Ma'am, Professor Dr. Shutapa Mukherjee, for always encouraging and supporting us. Again, thank you, former Dean Academics Professor Dr. B.N. Chatterjee, for guiding us right from the inception of the workshop. A special thanks to our registrar sir, Dr. Shubhashish Pradhan, for always supporting us. Thank you to all the representatives of organizing team, technical team who have taken the pain to organize such a wonderful session. Big thank you to students, faculty, staff and research scholar participants across the different states. Last but not the least, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Department of Computer Applications, DPP IMT, students, faculty, staff members for constantly working day and night in shaping the workshop. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.